you speak about a math book. That'll roll us right into this next segment. So, for school, for kindergarten through 12th grade, where did you go to school and how did you get there?
It was just up the road here. Part the time you walked, part the time you rode your bike. It was what was known as Ricker School. And then there was usually some transportation to come by. To start with, when I first started, the school teacher used her car. That was the bus. She was the janitor. She built the fire. And she went around and picked up the kids and took them back. That was a one-room schoolhouse. It had one wood stove, had the old outhouse, had a well down over the hill where you went with a bucket and got a bucket of water. A lot different than today's schools. You started them with a prayer every morning. And if you didn't behave, there wasn't any question as to what you could get a thrashing. And usually it didn't end only there, because when somebody else heard about it, you would get another one at home.
So how far up in grades was that school?
That was all 8 grades.
Went all 8th grade.
All 8 grades, all in one room. That's the other interesting thing. I have told more than one people that the teacher had aides. And of course they call them teacher's aides now in a different sense. But you would be sitting there, we'll say you was in the 7th or 8th grade, and there was other younger ones in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grades, and if they were having a problem, if one of them was having a problem with math or spelling or something, at one time or another she would take one of the older kids and set it with one of them younger ones, and they would help them. And I still say, if you want to learn something, you want to teach it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. That is, wisdom of age is something that's indispensable. So I do take it that when you left there, you went down to the high school?
Went down to Sabattus High School. Yep.
Okay. And then you
went all 4 years there.
You went all 4 years there.
Yep.
Okay. So what was your life like as a young boy just growing up on a farm out in the country?
Oh boy. Some people disagree with me. I mean, there was no drugs there. Others are going to say, oh yeah, we was drugged to the woodshed, we were drugged to church, we were drugged to school, we were drugged somewhere all the time. But there was no drugs, there was nothing but crime like there is now. The neighbors was always ready to help. As neighborhood kids, you all got together and you skated on the pond down here in the winter. We slid right down the middle of the road in the wintertime. Before they got around to sand it, we would usually have a day or so of good sliding.
And I guess I would imagine that you probably had quite a bit of work that you were expected to do on the farm.
Yep, you had chores every night. You had to fill the wood box. Usually had to split the wood before you filled the wood box. Ours was all sawed and thrown in the fall. You had a certain amount of calves to feed, barn to clean out. And of course at that time we didn't have any balers. It was all loose hay. And you had to pitch hay down. We didn't pitch it all down, but I was expected to pitch some down.
Of course, Jason and I living here know how farmers worked and everything, but even milking cows back in those days must have been a lot You didn't have milking parlors like they do now.
No, it was all done by hand. When it was quite a few years went by before my father had milkers. It was all done by hand in the wintertime, and the cows were in the barn. They had a little spot fenced off. We had the old-fashioned dug well out front, and there was a hand pump on top of it. And you'd get up there, you'd take some water out with you, prime that hand pump, because if you didn't let it drain down, it would freeze up and bust. And you had to pump. We had a trough set up that went down to a tub, and you just stood there and pumped and pumped and pumped and pumped. And them cows would come out. Sometimes I'll swear they had no bottom to them. They would just drink and drink and drink and drink.
That is really something. How many head were you milking?
I think probably 8, 9.
Yeah.
10, 12 head was a pretty good
Well, to hand
herd
milk,
in them days.
that is a lot of work. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. You're not
And
going to do 50 head.
especially in the summer when you start cutting the hay
Right. Yeah.
and pitching it all by hand.
Mm.
That was a lot of work.
Yeah. So I don't know if there'll be very much difference because we've almost covered this, but how was life like when you was a little older, like you was a teenager and you were in high school? How did things go then, or is it pretty repetitious about what we just said?
It began to change a lot. We had power. The roads were beginning to get tarred.
So what years? Yeah, what years would that be roughly?
I graduated from high school in '57, but we had power when I was in grammar school, and we came to where we had TVs. Of course, didn't used to have any of them way back then, and you took in the evening and you lit a lamp and you read a little while or you played some games, and then you went to bed a lot earlier than what they do now most of the time.